To publication, that is, once you have research conducted, how do you get it published? And we'll step through the usual steps as well as a real life example of a paper being published. So in the usual steps, first of all, you need to conduct research. This example goes through research that was written up as a thesis. So after you've conducted the research, you write up the thesis and then submit the thesis. And when it's assessed as being quite good, you will revise it for publication. Now, the revisions that are necessary here are because what is required in a thesis, as in the criteria you're being graded on, can be quite different and sometimes quite unnecessary additions compared to what is actually published. So once a journal has been chosen, then you start revising a thesis for publication, or you revise and then choose a necessary journal, and then submit your paper to the journal, cross your fingers, and wait for feedback. It's unlikely and pretty rare that the feedback is, "Congratulations, you've been accepted," without revisions. It's equally unlikely that you do get a "Congratulations, your paper's been accepted," with minimal revisions. Usually what you need to do is revise a few things and send back a revised manuscript showing that you've taken on the feedback that was provided. And then this part here can actually go around a few times. Sometimes you can receive feedback, which you action and revise your manuscript, send it back, and you get more feedback. So you action, you revise your manuscript, and you get more feedback, and so on. But the key is eventually in the process, you will get good news that your paper has been accepted for publication. This is called in press, as in it's coming soon. You'll do final edits on the paper here before eventually you are published. So let's look at a real example. So this real example that we're going through is for research in which the data was collected between April and June in 2016. The thesis was written up as an honours thesis in psychology in 2016, same year, October. After receiving a decent grade, a nice high distinction here, the student and the supervisor decided to submit this for publication. So here's the thesis. Here's the supervisor and the student organising, hey, maybe we should actually submit this for publication. So this paper wasn't at the outset decided to be published. It was only after being graded that the student considered, should we try? And the supervisor said, yes. So next what they did was revise the manuscript, and this went over the course of a year. Which it doesn't need to take a year to revise a manuscript. It depends on your circumstances and your supervisor's circumstances, how many people in the research team need to contribute or edit, and so on. So this was a year about for these researchers though, based on things they had going on. And they decided that the best journal to submit to would be Death Studies. Now how they made this decision is the reference list. Death Studies was the most cited journal, and that indicated that it was likely that the research that came from honours would be interesting or important to the same readership as Death Studies, based on how many times Death Studies articles were cited in this paper. Death Studies happened to be a Q1 journal, which is useful as well. So after the manuscript was revised according to the submission guidelines for Death Studies, as well as things taken out that weren't necessary in a publication compared to a thesis, the manuscript was submitted to Death Studies Journal in March 2018. And then the waiting game. Now note, when you submit your paper, different journals can have different processes. In this instance, it required a submission portal and submitting documents in certain formats, as well as things like the manuscript without any identifying details of the authors to enable a peer review. So feedback was received in December 2018, and the feedback required quite a few additions and changes. Here's an example of the authors replying to the comments. So filling out a table showing, here was the comment by a reviewer, here's our response to it. Usually there's a thank you for each response, and here's where the change can be found in the revised manuscript. And after revising the manuscript in March 2019, which was the deadline for the journal, the paper was resubmitted and fingers and toes were crossed, hoping for good news. Good news came in June 2019. The manuscript was accepted for publication, so it became an in-press article online. Now, a reminder here that the outcome might have been that more revisions were necessary, and this could have happened multiple times, but it was good news in this case, an in-press before being actually published in the journal in an edition in June 2021. And you can find this paper online, all published 2021, just like that. So that was an example of the road to publication for an honours paper in the psychology discipline.